I know. All right, well, since it is a little bit after 6:30, we will go ahead and get started. I know with the weather, we'll try and get you guys in and out. And I know, obviously, we have retired Detective Hartlett here, and Mr. Joe Hudson is going to do human trafficking a little more in-depth into that case. I know there were some questions on that. For those of you, I think most of you guys do know me. I am Sergeant Jessica Kirchner. This is Corporal Amy McGuinness. I did introduce her at our last meeting as one of our newest additions. And now we have Officer Ryan Teal, who is going to be taking over full-time our Explorers program, which is a youth-based leadership program where many of them are interested in becoming law enforcement officers. So he's got some good stuff that he's doing with that. So he has joined our team as of last month. So we are going to go over some of our recent crime that we have had. I know we've had an increase in our robberies, we've had an increase in our shootings, and obviously when you hear that, it probably strikes a lot of fear in people because of robbery and stuff. We have had what we like to describe as our random crimes, which are the KFC and the jewelry stores and stuff like that. But a majority of our relationships are known victim, known offender relationships, and Corporal McGuinness is going to go over a couple of those cases. And we actually have some arrests and stuff on recent ones, even as recent as yesterday. So she's going to go over some of those, and then we'll do the human trafficking portion.
Sure. One of the things we wanted to go over with this presentation is what a robbery is. I mean, you picture a guy with a gun, saying, give me all your money, dark street corner, and that's it. Robbery can be kind of complicated. It can be kind of, it could be, someone trying to snatch your purse and you fight back a little bit, you hold on to your purse strap, and because he's taking it from you with force, it's considered a robbery. There's a case we're going to profile in here at the 24/7 Mart on Forest Drive, which a young gentleman was arrested for robbery. During that, it was more like a, what do they call them, the swarm thefts, where there's a bunch of kids that go in the store, they start taking things. Sorry, that's somebody else's phone. So if you, so in that case, they're in the store, they're stealing things, the clerk confronts one of them, and the guy says, and the guy that we arrested says, threatens him, get away from me. He has his hand in his pocket, kind of like he might have something in his pocket, because he's now stole that candy or stole the chips or stole the stuff from the store, plus he threatened the clerk. He's using force, and he took the stuff out of the store. We ended up catching up with him later because everybody knows him in the neighborhood. He gets charged with robbery. So it's a little different, some of these things, and we're going to explain to you how some of these cases either come to nothing, they're unfounded, they're suspended, and why that happens. So like this case, this one, the victim said that he was walking out of one of the apartment buildings on Madison Street in Harbor House. This was at like 1:45 in the morning. He said he's walking out from visiting a girl. He's approached by 3 men. One of the guys had a gun. He was struck in the face. His cell phone and his money were taken. The suspects fled the area, and the victim started walking home. Okay, when he reached Tyler Avenue, so he's starting on Madison, and he walks all the way down President to Tyler, he flags down a passing police car to report the robbery. He also wanted to ride home. So these are kind of red flags, okay? He just walked out of a building and gets robbed. Wouldn't you go back into the building and say, I got robbed, call the police? He continues walking on his way, that kind of thing. So later when the detective called back and followed up with the victim, he said, I wasn't robbed. So that becomes unfounded. It's something that's on our daily report as a robbery, but maybe a couple days later, it's cleared up and it's not a robbery for us anymore. Maybe it was an exceptionally cold night, so maybe he just wanted to ride home.
Did they file a false police report against him and let him get warm in jail?
No, I do not believe on that one they did, but there's another case where they end up doing that as well. This one, Wendell Avenue, he was actually on the footpath through Germantown Homewood Community, the one that runs right by here on the station. The victim said he was walking, he's approached by two men. One of the men put his index finger up to the victim's head and asked him for money. The victim threw money on the ground, and the man asked for more, and then the men tried to punch the victim. They took the money and walked away. So it's a little strange. That one ends up being suspended because we don't have anything to go on. We don't have a good description. We don't have anyone in the neighborhood telling us anything about who it might have been. We don't have enough information to continue an investigation. So in that case, that one is suspended. And I'm going to go through some of these quickly because obviously there's a few of them. This one was Martha Court. The adult male victim was walking home from work, approached by two men who punched him. They took his cell phone. The officers looking in the area afterwards actually found his cell phone, and he did have, it was a Hispanic male victim coming home from work, not too late, 10 p.m., and the two suspects, again, we don't have good descriptions. It was dark clothing, masks on their faces, which in the winter time, you'll see a lot of people walking around with the ski masks on. This one, West Washington Street robbery. This one, the victim was inside a business, and he knows Myron Jacobs. Myron Jacobs and him had some sort of previous...
Believe the line is blurred between prostitution and sexual slavery. The man in this surveillance footage is peeling off dollar bills to pay...
It works now. So the victim in this case has had a previous altercation with Mr. Jacobs. They meet in the store, in Arundel Carryout. Jacobs takes the victim's watch off his wrist by force and leaves the area. Actually, the officers found Jacobs right away. He returned the watch to the victim. He's still charged with robbery for that case because he took the guy's watch by force. So these are two people that knew each other, had some sort of, like I said, disagreement, previous altercation. Again, it's not clear what that was about. This one is the 24/7 robbery that I was talking about.
Oh, no.
He entered with about 9 others, and they started taking things. So the employee confronted them, and Colbert here threatened him and tapped his jacket pocket, insinuating he had a weapon. So apparently he was wearing a white surgical mask, but the employee knew his voice because he came in the store so often. He lives right in that neighborhood, right by this 24/7 mart, so he apparently went in there a lot. So they took like 10 or 12 boxes full of candy, 5 or 6 full boxes of Slim Jims, cigars and cigarillos. They lost about $800 to $1,000. And they ended up finding him that night with some Kit Kats up his jacket. So, Silipana Road. Now this one is a 13-year-old boy walking home from Bates Middle School. He was walking, playing with his phone as he's walking. An older boy, 14 years old, who he didn't know from school, came up to him and grabbed his phone, pushed the boy to the ground and checked his pockets as well to see if he had anything else. He took the boy's iPhone, and we were able to track down the perpetrator. He was issued a juvenile citation. He had no previous juvenile record. In that case, juvenile justice recommended 90 days informal supervision for a 14-year-old charged with robbery. He has to write a letter to say what he did wrong. He has to, I forget what the other sanctions were.
Come up with a 5-year plan.
A 5-year plan,
His report would call in weekly to DJS.
call in weekly. So these are the sanctions that DGS is coming up with. This was not a case they referred to circuit court, which is something that they can do with the juvenile case, not treating him as an adult, but they'll refer it to a juvenile master, and it'll be an adjudicatory hearing as a juvenile, and it carries more weight than this informal supervision. So, is the victim asking for more?
I believe he was gonna talk to his wife and everyone decided.
Right, so in this case, we were working with the victim. They have to agree to the sanctions, and the victim was not very happy that this was all the juvenile was gonna have to do, so.
The 13-year-old had a wife?
No,
The
the
parents.
parents, the parents,
I'm sorry, the father came and talked to me, and he was
yes,
gonna go and talk to his wife.
yes. Okay, so this is the Newtown Drive shooting that happened January 13th. When this first came out, it was 19-year-old shot in the foot. He was walking in the area, he heard a gunshot, started running. Then when he was running, heard a second gunshot, struck once in the foot, and that's the story we had at the beginning. Now, it turns out earlier in the evening, they were involved in a dice game, Ireland and Sims. Sims pulled out a gun during that time and threatened Ireland, or even shot at him. I'm not sure the exact details, but Ireland came back in the area with a gun. Again, he thought that Sims was going to do something, so he started firing first. So they're both arrested.
Did they find a gun on Devontae?
Devontae? No, because he was the victim at the time. He didn't have a gun when we picked him up
Okay.
to take him to the hospital. And by the time we arrested him for the shooting, it was weeks later. We only arrested him Friday night, when we got the full story from witnesses and Ireland, so. West Street, robbery. Again, this is highlighting relationships between robbers and victims. Again, Racco was actually, I think, his ex-girlfriend's mother. They were meeting when he threatened her and her dogs that were there with her. He pushed her and took her purse from her shoulder. That's what makes this a robbery. He walked away with the purse. She ran for help. We got there, we found him behind the business in the area right away. He was arrested, being held at the detention center. This is our Silipana Road shooting on January 20th. Right now, the suspect, we're still working on finding the suspect, but the victim himself had, at the time of his shooting, 163 oxycodone tablets, 54 morphine tablets, and 18 Adderall capsules in his possession. He's been charged with 2 counts of CDS possession with intent to distribute narcotics and 3 counts of possession of CDS. So there might be a drug-related aspect to this shooting / robbery on Silipana Road. Again, it happened around 10 or 11 o'clock at night on that footpath going to Truxton Park from Silipana Road. Later that same night, we had a shooting in Harbor House. Saifullah Bridges was shot about 18 times. He currently has a summons for drug possession that what he had on him at the time of his shooting, and Avon Johnson has been arrested for the shooting. He had drugs on him when we arrested him. County police got charges on him for those drugs because he was arrested in the county. So
That was 2 Saturdays ago?
it was the 21st. It was the same night as the Silipana Road shooting. It was about 1 o'clock, almost 2 o'clock in the morning, I think. Yes, sir.
Drugs in his possession of the heroin or?
Heroin, yes. Here we have a business rob, Chesapeake Gold Buyers on West Street, armed robbery. We do have some pictures. Obviously, they're not the best quality like most of our pictures that we get. We work with what we can get, hope that people recognize maybe clothes, that kind of thing. Obviously, he went right in, demanded money, went right out. It was very quick. And we'll talk about the most recent. We had a robbery yesterday at Gold Max. We'll talk about that one as well.